This is David Allen, and I'm talking to my team. They head and direct the Court Order Juvenile Program. This is our, I think, most important program. We're in the prison, boys industrial school, girls industrial school, but we've got now a cadre of the young men and women who commit early violent crimes. And our researchers showed if you don't get them between 11 and 14, they're going to become murderers or hitmen at 16 to 19, and it's there. So we have these young men there. We're now bringing their parents in on a day as well. And just now, Mark was said there's a difference between a man and a father. And Dini was saying that the major thing is a father or a family has to teach these kids discipline. And Dini said something interesting. She said, you know, when you work with these kids, you realize the thing they hold dear to their heart mostly is what? Their phone. And Dini says, work with that phone.
Work with the phone.
And then Mark, you were trying to come in.
Yes, because normally you'll hear in the Bible, you hear this thing called the rod of correction. But we have to understand now, for these type of youth, you have to travel with the rods of correction.
The rods of
correction. The rods of correction.
What's the rods of correction,
Because
man?
normally, I would have my belt or my cane, and sometimes I would spank my, really physically discipline my child. But that rod there is only to let my child know that there are consequences for your actions. But because that doesn't change his mind nor his heart. There's the other rod now, which is love, which is time, which is guidance, which also comes from the Word of God. I use that to try to convince my child.
Okay, say that again. You said the rod, the Bible talks about the rod, but you say now there are rods.
Rods of
and
correction.
These other rods are what?
One is a physical rod, whereas you discipline the child. Sometimes, like Medini said, you take the phone away. Sometimes, that's why when you see men get locked up, they go to jail, they go to prison, that's to let you know that, guess what, these are the consequences for your actions. But that doesn't mean that, hey, I'm trying to change your mind to correct you, to function properly, or to program you that you've become a real man, or to become, I don't deal with the heart and the mind and the heart of an individual. So to transform and to renew the heart and the mind, there you use either the Bible, and then you could use education. You use knowledge, you use wisdom, you use understanding to try to get in. That's where counseling comes in, where we try to, as a parent, to sit down and talk to your child, to try to explain to them, to try to guide them down the right road. You see? It's because if you just coming up every time you do something, I'm shouting at you, I'm yelling at you, you ain't gonna never be nothing, I'm just beating you and whatnot. That's you're starting to abuse the child now, and abuse your authority.
So there's a very thin line between discipline and abuse.
Yes.
And what is that thin line?
There's a very thin line, like you said. There's a very thin line between discipline and abuse. Is when you start to assert your authority, and you're just focusing on the outside. On the outside, it's more physical, and that's why you'll notice a lot of these kids, when they get angry and whatnot, they're mainly doing what they see.
Okay, Mark, let's go a step deeper. We've got a cadre of these young men. They're tough guys. We know they're all in gangs, and in fact, we're one of the only groups that take these guys, because a lot of clinics are afraid of them, and we believe we're doing God's work. And of course, with Mark and Dini, I consider holy people, maybe sometime. But we believe we're called to stand in the gap here, and we are not afraid, because we feel that we have another power that works along with us. But with these young men we face and are taking responsibility for, Dini and Mark, do you see in them guys who can be potential killers? And what do you look for that makes you realize that you have to maybe draw closer to kind of work with them in a more concentrated way?
Number one is that one of the main characteristics that you will note is that their irresponsibility for their own behavior.
Their what?
Their irresponsibility for their own behaviors.
I mean, they don't show any concern about what they do. So in the group, they can talk about hitting, punching.
Anything goes. There's no law.
And they have no remorse.
No remorse.
They have none. You would have some.
So forgiveness is an unknown word to them.
It's unknown. And then we have to kind of visit it, like every session we have to visit forgiveness somewhere in our session to help them to understand that that is the root. You have to know how to forgive. First, you have to learn to forgive yourself for whatever instances, and then you could go ahead and forgive. But it's kind of hard to sit, and you'd hear some of them in the Genesis, you'd hear some of them talk about their relationship with mommy and the things they would have done in terms of not having respect. Well, that's a no-no. We don't tolerate that kind of language, be it mommy or be it daddy. But in all of them, well, most of them, there's that level of them being able to commit a murder. It's there. My thing between abuse and correction is love, because we know that correction without love is abuse. So you will be abusing your kids if that's the route you want to take. But a lot
So
of
make
times,
sure if you're disciplining your child, you're doing it in
do
love.
it in love. If you do it in love, you get a better response from the child. I see Mr. Beck operate with, I call his son Junior. I see him operate with Junior, and it's almost as if you see a little Mr. Beckford in the making in terms of what he is now. And so you would see, he would come to the office some days with Mr. Beckford, and unless you say something, he would sit there, either his phone or something in his hand, and should you make conversation, he's there. He's able to have conversations. So it comes with love. That's what they have to do.
That's the purpose of having both parents in a home. Whereas
Exactly.
when daddy has me and same Junior with me and Junior, well, me and Junior done had it out. Junior, mommy now, Junior could walk back inside, and mommy now comes with the loving arm.
Yes.
And
does
then
it.
she point at me, and then I got to come back with the loving arm. And so then after that, instead of being mad or upset or angry with me,
Exactly.
we leave with there smiling.
Exactly.
You know,
That's how it
so-
is.
But Mark and Deanie, you know, I appreciate what you're saying about let's get two parents in the home. We don't. And, you know, I don't know how to fix that one. I looked around, I don't know how to fix that one.
With the parents?
We're dealing with a single parent almost society. And I dread what the mothers have to go through. They have a hard time. Deanie and Mark, you know that.
They do.
I mean, when this hurricane triumph, remember Matthew, Mark, and this lady with the 4 children holding her as the roof blows off,
Yes.
and just so scary. And then one of the guys holding her, a 16-year-old, was headshot, I think the next day. And so when we met her, we had a woman who lost a house, a woman who lost a child, and you just felt the pain was like a mountain. But then even though we met with her, I think you brought the 2 young boys, I think it was about 2 months afterwards or more. And they were saving money because they wanted to buy a gun to revenge the headshot killing of their older brother. And what amazed me, again, I'm soft, right? I mean, the guys are so nice.
They are.
I mean, nice little fellas. And
They are.
I said, what you saying, what? You want to save money to get a gun? You know where to get a gun? Yes, Dr. Allen. So Mark, they knew where to get a gun? But how old are they, Deanie and Mark?
They're like 14 now.
Yes.
14 and what?
14?
14 twins.
So 14 tell me they trying to save money to buy a gun to revenge their 16-year-old brother's headshot murder. You know, Mark, so my face, I mean, that's like outside my realm of understanding. But you're saying 14-year-olds in our country know where to get a gun and how to get a gun.
That's a normal life.
Say what?
That's a normal life for many.
That's a normal life? What do you mean normal?
In our time when we grew up, you had gangs and you had groups, whereas for a younger child, it was restricted. So like a certain age, and because I know you, we could hang together and be together, but when a younger child is coming around, we would push them off and let them go that way. But now in this generation, the younger ones are recruited.
Yes.
The younger the better.
Yes.
So you're saying in your experience of gang work and involvement, you guys wouldn't take a young person?
No.
You would just say no young guys?
Yes, especially if I know that's my neighbor or my friend, child or relative or somebody or this young family member or whatever, youngster, but they go to school. They stay in your business.
Boy, Mark could talk tough, eh?
You know, go.
Grown-up stuff.
But now, because bear in mind, back then, even Miss Daisy, even Aunt Susie could have carried you to church as a youngster who lived next door or down the road.
That's right.
Now, a different ball game. The younger the better, because you have some of these children who in senior school recruiting primary school children, because
Some of the kids in senior school.
Yes.
like even up to grade 9,
Yes.
they walk around and recruit the primary school children and be teaching them. That's why you could find and you can see that the primary school kids now, they be writing these gang signs with graffiti, and they already know the signs, symbols, the wordings, and what to say, and this and that, you know.
You know, fellow Bahamians, I'm hoping you're listening, because this is not academic, this is not sentimental, this is not guesswork. This is stuff we're intimately involved with day by day. And if you really want to come and see our research, come and visit some of our groups and see what Mark and Dean are doing, what we're trying to do, really you'd have a great understanding of what's happening in your country. It's not a surprise to us about the crime rate, because we realize unless you get these young men centered, because right now we have almost a young male Holocaust taking place in the country, and it disturbs us, but somehow we as a country have not come to grips with that yet. And I know we shout out various things to do, but there's some hard work, and this work is not glorious, fellow Bahamians. This takes time, it takes money, it takes investment, you have to be there, you have to give, you have to be involved. You also have to be vulnerable. But the point we're making is that these young men are workable. That's what we want to say tonight. They are workable, fellow Bahamians. They are workable. Give us the tools. Let us join with somebody else the tools. They are workable. They are workable. Mark went to T.A. Thompson about 3 years ago. They had a terrible problem there. I called the headmaster myself about a few months ago, and he said, Mark's work at the school, the fights are just less. So this gentleman in our country is a gift. And why doesn't he be used in a wider way with whatever the bigger programs? Because he has some idea of the psyche of these young men. And unless we get into their psyche, I don't know how we're going to do it, because to sit back and say, oh, the 90-year-old killed an 8-month baby, that's great. But from Mark's perspective, he's been telling me, Doc, that's where they're headed. And unless we could interrupt or intervene at that 10, 11, 12-year-old situation, that's where it's going. Now, Mark, the other thing that struck me, and Dini, you were going through post-traumatic stress disorder the other day, that a lot of these kids in your group are traumatized.
They are.
And how are they traumatized, Jeannie?
Based on some of the things they've seen, based on some of the things they've been involved with, that's what really get them. You know, we have a kid who saw his best friend murdered, and it was kind of hard to get him to open up. When after a while, he don't really even talk about the story. He wouldn't, but because we know. And because I think his mom shared it, he was at that point where he would not even say good morning or good afternoon. He just sat there. But to see him today and where he is, based on all they see, based on some of the things they go through, even we have kids as young as 14 who, the ones that were saving up to buy the guns. It's scary that we can't even say it, but they told us where they would go to get the guns. It's that easy. It's that easy. Something needs to be done with that, you know?
Do you all get discouraged?
No.
Why not, Deanie?
No. I don't think we look at it as work as much as we look at it as ministry. And
what's the difference?
The difference is, if we look at it as work, we get discouraged, we get tired, we get all them kind of things. But when we look at it as ministry, realizing if I could impart some of what I have in this child, or in little Johnny, or Susie, I could help to make her or him a better person.
Beautifully said. We're going to take a break and be right back.